You want a hot thought?
I would love a hot thought.
If you average 34.5 on offense and 10.5 on defense, you're going to win a lot of Big 12 games.
Red Raider Recon, brought to you by Cantex Roofing. I'm Clint Scott. He's Rob Bro.
Why is it dark in here?
Well, it's a blackout this week.
The game is a blackout. We don't have to black out the podcast.
Look, I'm committed. Are you committed?
Well, yeah.
Oh, come on! Turn them off! Occupy! Turn them off! Red Raider football rolled to another blowout victory, dominating Houston 35-11. Now 5-0 and ranked 9th in the AP Top 25, they'll turn their attention to a homecoming matchup with the Kansas Jayhawks. KU picked up their second Big 12 win, coming back to beat UCF last week, 27-20. They scored 13 second-half points while shutting out the Knights in the third and fourth quarter. They're led by experienced quarterback Jalon Daniels. This season, he's returned to form as one of the most prolific touchdown scorers in the Big 12. He's thrown 16 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions, while adding another score on the ground. His passing touchdown mark is second in the conference, and his efficiency rating is the best among Big 12 quarterbacks. His top target is speedster Emmanuel Henderson Jr. He's KU's leader in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. Where the offense has been good for the Jayhawks, it's been a mixed bag on the other side of the ball. They have the second highest sack total in the Big 12 with 16 this season. However, when it comes to opposing teams' third and fourth down conversion rates, they're in the bottom half of the league. That includes back-breaking conversions late in their losses to Missouri and Cincinnati. For the Red Raiders, all they did this weekend was add to an already tremendous year for the defense. Houston's lone touchdown came at the end of the first half. David Bailey brought his season sack total up to 5.5, which is second best in the Big 12. They also forced 3 more turnovers, including another interception by linebacker Jacob Rodriguez. The knock, however, was penalties and red zone efficiency. With the two going hand in hand, the Red Raiders were held to just 2 touchdowns in the red zone, despite making 8 trips, thanks to early drops and 4 red zone penalties. All in all, it was still another prolific day for numbers, finishing with 552 yards of total offense. 280 came from running backs Cam Dickey and Jacoby Williams. In the rest of the conference, Utah hosts Arizona State as the Sun Devils aim to stay perfect in Big 12 play. 5-0 BYU is at 4-1 Arizona. Iowa State will look to bounce back from a loss at Cincinnati with a trip to Boulder to take on the 2-4 Colorado Buffaloes. The Bearcats will look to keep up their momentum at home against UCF. It's a battle of purple in Manhattan as the Wildcats welcome in 4-1 TCU. And finally, the no longer undefeated Houston Cougars will take on a limping Oklahoma State program in Stillwater. It's a blackout on Saturday night for homecoming, and the Texas Tech defense is looking to continue to be an opposing team's worst nightmare.
It is a blackout this week. Kansas, homecoming, 100-year anniversary, Ring of Honor, potentially. What could go wrong? All those things have never come back to haunt Texas Tech in a home game.
I know you're doing a bit,
but
I saw actual fear in your eyes for just a moment.
Well,
you talked. You're a good actor, so I think you were just buying into it. Clearly.
We'll go with that.
It's a huge game for a lot of reasons. I think if you throw out all of the extra stuff, like throw out homecoming, throw out the blackout, throw out the 100 years jersey, like all of that. And it's all awesome, don't get me wrong. But I'm saying if you take all of that away and just say, okay, you haven't been a top 10 team since 2013. This is your first performance as a top 10 team. It needs to go well.
And what happened the last time you were a top 10 team? Now, that was on the road. It was against Oklahoma. That was the best team you played all year. And it was a really close game. But
the point still stands.
Yeah, there's an opportunity here. And, we've seen it from Joey McGuire. We saw it in the ride this week as he's talking to the Houston, going into the Houston game. Mm-hmm. And they're in the hotel and they're having their team meeting and he said, hey, people are expecting you to have a fall. People are expecting you to come back down from wherever you are. But we have further to push. And Shea Wood in the pregame speech, who
master manipulator,
electric motivator. He says
He manipulates offenses.
there's one thing standing between you and greatness, and it's fear. Fear of being great.
Yeah.
And so I do think that this coaching staff is hammering home that you have to be great every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think defensively you were great against Houston. I don't know that offensively you were great, and you put up 35 on a team that doesn't give up 35 very often, and you kicked 5 field goals to do it.
You were great offensively in between the 10s.
Sure, yeah, I could argue that. Or I can get behind that. So it's another opportunity for a letdown, but it's also another opportunity to prove some things. Mm-hmm. And that's two ways to look at it. I think obviously I would prefer to look at it in the second way. And I turned in my prediction to Jamie Lent today. We'll give our predictions for the game against Kansas at the end here. But just looking at what you've done so far, I think a lot of people expected you to go to Utah and stumble. You didn't. They were favored. I think a lot of people, probably less people, expected you to go stumble at Houston. Certainly the Houston fans expected you to stumble at Houston.
Yeah, the ones over there rooting for their home team did.
And you just didn't. You did not stumble. You did not fall.
So I like that everything expectation-wise, from a season-wide view to a game-to-game view, head coach Joey McGuire has not shied away from. Because a lot of times they try to hide it, right? And like they say things like, "Oh, we're just focused on the next opponent." Well, you can be focused on the next opponent, but also have bigger goals and say, "This is what we want our standard to be. We want our standard to be competing for a Big 12 championship." Coach McGuire has said that a bunch of times. We want to be in the playoff. We expect this team to be in the playoff. They've said that a bunch of times. And this week in his media availability, he didn't shy away that this is a huge game that they need to play well in. And I know it's a 4-2 Kansas squad. I thought he maybe went a little bit far when he used the wording they should be 6-0. They were in a couple of games that were winnable, but they did things to make sure that they shouldn't have been 6-0. But it's a really
certainly 5-1.
Certainly 5-1.
They should have beat Cincinnati.
I look at Kansas and I think if you're just taking the big game aspect out of it, how do you stack up against them? I think this could be the best offense you see in the Big 12 all year. And this could be the most self-inflicting wound-style defense you see all year. And so, we already had the question, hey, why, you're a 13.5-point favorite, opened at 14.5, you're a 2-touchdown favorite. And the over-under is right at 60. And just like, well, after averaging, opponents just scoring 11 points on you, why is the line set that way? And it's one, I think there's a little bit of a nod to say, like, hey, eventually you will run into some of the higher end offenses, and I don't think I would walk away just super disappointed if Kansas was hanging around 21 points. And that's basically what Vegas is telling you. It's saying this is going to be a 36-23 game, and that's still a really good showing for you.
Yeah.
And so I'm really interested to see. This could also be maybe the most combined possessions we see when you put in their defense that we'll get into a little bit later. But I like, just circle back, I like that they're not shying away from the moment, and they're not shying away from what the fans think, what the donors think, what the athletic director thinks, and then what they think in their own locker room.
You ready for some 3 thoughts?
3 thoughts!
To wrap up last weekend?
Let's do it.
First thought?
First thought.
This defense is good. Better than good. I think Miami and their defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably like in Ohio State and their complete defense. I think Georgia's taken a step back. I don't know that Georgia's in that conversation. I think you're within the elite of the elites defensively. I think Utah looked like a bad offense because you played them. But in all their other games, they're scoring 40 points. I like to see what they do against Arizona State, maybe, to see
Right,
what their offense truly looks like.
If they score 30-plus against Arizona State,
That
I think we should
some things.
start to look back again, because that's been the biggest knock. It's like, oh well, yeah, when they scored a bunch of points, oh, it was against West Virginia. Oh, it was against UCLA.
Another thought.
Second thought.
The inconsistencies on offense last year seem to be predicated on you losing aggressiveness in stretches. The inconsistencies this year might be that you're being a little too aggressive. Now, whether that's Behren zipping the ball over the middle and causing a drop to Terrence Carter, or potentially a drop with Cam Dickey there, though that's kind of a running back, not used to it, whatever it is. Get the running backs on the jugs machines. Or just tempo at the goal line and causing some pre-snap penalties. I think that stuff irons itself out. We'll talk about that later on, but that was my thought against Houston. The offensive inconsistencies maybe just be that you're being a little too aggressive when you don't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to have taken a beat and seen if they reviewed that first play at the 1, going right to left, and potentially even the second one going left to right. The final thing I noticed, my third thought, hashtag noticing. My third thought on the weekend was, and I'll expound upon this in my overreactions, but I was on the Cincinnati train last year. But after they started 5-1, I bailed on Satterfield. But I just think back to 2018, when I think he was at App State, or maybe even 21, when he was at Louisville. And I thought, I would not mind Scott Satterfield being a part of the Texas Tech program as the head coach. I really respected him once upon a time. How he ended at Louisville, how he's been at Cincinnati, it just feels like he's been getting in his own way more often than not. But year 2 of Tyson Veit and that defense seems to be coming together. And I think I might be back in on Cincinnati with you.
I'm going to save my Cincinnati thought for overreactions.
I'm doubling down in the overreactions. So what are your 3 thoughts from the weekend?
All right, my first thought.
First thought.
Thank you.
My bad.
We share some similar thoughts of how we're going to get to the same point. My first thought was that you still haven't played a perfect game offensively, and no one has been close to you when games have gone final, and that's because I think you have a top 5 defense in the country.
Yep.
And when you go into sometimes discussions in the off season, over the summer, in the spring, for whatever you want, even early in fall ball, we'll set expectations, and a lot of times you don't meet those expectations. This year was different because you were talking about Texas Tech in a way it feels like you never have, especially when you go to the defensive side of the ball and you've got PFF grading you as the 3rd best defensive line, which is a great way to start for a really good defense. You can have a worse back end, which you don't, and have a really, really good defensive line and make a huge difference in games. Depending on where you look on the field, your worst is just good, is really good. You're great in a lot of spots. And all of that together, you have just set yourself apart in the Big 12, but you've also set yourself apart in a way that the nation, hashtag noticing, is watching and paying attention.
You want a hot thought?
I would love a hot thought. I like that better than hot take. Hot thought.
Well, this is our thought segment. If you average 34.5 on offense and 10.5 on defense, you're going to win a lot of Big 12 games.
That is a hot thought. We need some fire to pop up, a little fire machine. Second thought.
Second thought.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Your offensive line played really well as a whole, and to me, maybe their best game, and don't look now, it wasn't perfect, especially when you put in some pre-snap penalties that hurt you, but just from a blocking standpoint, and that was against a pretty good defensive line, and I'm not trying to build Houston up to something that I don't think they are, but I do think that they're solid up front, especially with Carlos Allen and Eddie Walls. The third. I thought you showed major strides of gelling together. That's a big thing for an offensive line. It's easier said than done, especially when you have so many new pieces. Certainly some of the mental mistakes still need to be cleaned up that I'm sure that we'll circle back to and talk about. But just from a blocking standpoint, you protected Behren Morton, and in the running game, you consistently made holes. I think that's what's so frustrating to go to, like when you're on the 1 yard line. They weren't going to stop you. You were setting up for a run play every single time. You were about to bash it through like you did a couple more times, and there was just nothing they could do about it. And so I thought your offensive line had a really good game. And then when you just look, again, to go back to gradings, your tackles graded out well, and Davion Carter had a fantastic game. So that's something that I walked away from. And last but not least, my third thought. Your running back room has flown under the radar, which is fine because they'll just keep producing.
Yeah.
Cam Dickey is 7th in the Big 12 in rushing. Jacoby Williams is 9th. You're the only program in the league to have 2 running backs in the top 10. That's just rushing. Then you add that they've already combined for over 1,000 yards, which is crazy to think about, of offense. They're combining for 200 yards per game. They're still catching up from not playing in second halves early on. 201 against Utah, 280 versus Houston, 3 scores in that Houston game, 2 scores in the Utah game. It's going to be hard for either guy to, I think, to get in the all-conference discussion because they are so split, which is a shame. I hope I'm wrong, but right now that's just kind of how I'm viewing it. But I also think you have the best duo in the Big 12, which is also wild to think about when you look back at the injury that you had to start the season. So that's something that has just been, they've just been so consistently good. Yeah.
I agree. This offensive line, I think, is maybe good. I think maybe Will Jados is the one guy that you're like, okay, well, what does Cash Cleveland look like at guard? Mm-hmm. What does Sheridan Wilson look like at guard? Do you kind of mix around the interior? Yeah. What does Hunter Sambrano potentially look like at guard? Is Vinny Scurry available? Maybe mentally after some things that have been said this year to come in and play, but I think it's helping your running backs as well because they struggled early finding lanes. I think they've gotten more patient, but I also think there's better lanes.
I think it's hand in hand.
Your two thoughts kind of go together there for the last two.
I think the running game was clunky. That's how I would say, because that was something I pulled away from the running backs too, especially Jacoby Williams has started to nail down I'm going to take a beat, I'm going to let this run play develop. And whenever you looked at maybe Kent State or Pine Bluff, whenever you had some frustrating short yardage situations or red zone appearances when you were just trying to run it in like you have been the past couple of games, Coach McGuire said, hey, sometimes it's on the running back, sometimes it's on the offensive line, and we all went like, oh, how's it going to be on the running back? And I think there's something to that because they're also young. They're young rushers still learning to understand the patient side of things. And I think that they've taken a big stride. And then also I agree with you, I just think the offensive line has gotten better. But still, like to your Jados thought, still plenty of room to grow. But I think we're starting to see the talent shine through. And I also think they're just starting to play alongside each other a lot better, which is a good sign moving forward. All right, I'm ready to overreact if you're ready to overreact.
I am so ready to overreact, but I want to hear yours first.
I'm going to start with the quarterback. We're going to have to deal with some version of calls for Hammond, regardless of Morton's performance. And I say that because I think he did everything that you needed him to do to put up at least 50 points. But when you have drops, when you have the red zone penalties, and by the way, 2 of those drops I think you would have just scored on, not even set you up for a score.
Yeah.
Then you have the red zone penalties, and not just red zone penalties at the goal line. That's completely changing what you're about to do. And also, I think that we're not giving enough respect to Houston's secondary, especially when they got back there, because that's exactly what they've done all year. It's what we said they were good at. Anyways, it's going to be hard to put together an old fitty burger with stuff like that. And that doesn't mean that he was the reason. And it's like everyone's putting, not everyone, the ones that are calling for Hammond were putting that on him. But unless you're putting Hammond in to catch a screen or in at left tackle or tight end to not jump on the goal line, then there is no reason to be wanting to see a switch there. And I really think you could see Morton go 30 for 35 in a game. And in those 5 incompletions, you'd seen at least somebody go like, Hammond would have made that throw.
He could go 44 of 45 with the one being an interception.
Yeah.
And it would just be, did you see the interception?
Or a sack, strip sack, and say like, he's not mobile. That's why. We need a mobile guy.
Yeah. I would prefer not to have Behren Morton ever run the ball on those designed runs. I don't mind if he's getting out of the pocket and gaining 5 or 6 if he's sliding or going out of bounds. But, it just looks, it makes him look bad in some respects that he's doing that. All right, go ahead.
You'd be one of the favorites in every single conference. It's not just that you're in the Big 12, and I'm tired of that narrative.
Are you familiar with collegefootballgraphs.com?
I am.
They do the stat previews. You can go into that website, cfb-graphs.com. Might be a .org or something, whatever it is. And you can analytically preview every game you'd ever think of. Well, I went and found some neutral site analytical previews for every single SEC team. How many of those games do you think Texas Tech analytically is favored in the SEC? Neutral site. They have 16 teams.
Definitely not cheating here because I know the answer. I want to say 15.
15. And the only one's Alabama. Okay, but what about the Big Ten? The Big Ten has a lot of good teams. Well, 15 out of 18. And it's Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan. Michigan's an interesting matchup with Texas Tech.
Interesting.
That's like 30.
Yeah, seriously, what separates?
teams.
And I'm not saying that I think the top end of the Big 12 has as many true championship contenders as the other Big 2, because they don't, and that's what the difference in the conference is. Even though I think the middle might be better, but like, what separates those championship contenders? To start, you have to have an elite defense. And that's what you have with this unit. And then you have to have at least a functioning offense on the other side. Like Texas is my example, where I think their defense, they have a lot of really good pieces, and they're going to keep them every single game. They don't have a functioning offense right now. And you have a functioning to really good offense, and you haven't even played your best offensive day yet. So Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Alabama, Oklahoma, if I'm looking at just the SEC, I feel like they're built the same way. A little bit different, and each one, by the way, but obviously Alabama, because theirs came with a loss, they've had one bad defensive day, and you haven't seen that yet. And I don't necessarily think that it's even been like, oh, well, you understand why they had a bad... Like Arkansas was mixed in one of those for a bad day. And you shouldn't be having, if you're, whatever, you shouldn't be having a bad day against Arkansas. And then the Big Ten, same thing. Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, all of those teams, to be fair, I think you could beat any single one of them. I think you could lose to any one of them. Yeah, but I just think when you're saying that, oh, it's just the Big 12, and I have seen that, it's ridiculous. You would be a favorite in every single conference. In the ACC, it would be you or Miami.
Yeah.
My final overreaction is it's going to be you and Cincinnati in the Big 12 championship game. And Scott Satterfield is going from hot seat to off-season extension.
He's the Big 12 Coach of the Year currently.
I don't...
right now.
I think him or McGuire. I think Joey McGuire.
Voters...
They do love an underdog story.
And pollsters.
They do love an underdog story.
For whatever reason, Coach of the Year generally isn't just the best coach. It's the best coach that wasn't predicted to be on the best team. And I think Joey will get knocked because, they bought that team. He didn't really do any coaching, which I disagree with.
It's ridiculous.
But I would feel right now, I would bet on the voters to vote on Satterfield over McGuire. It's not how I would vote.
I feel like people that have listened to me on air or the podcast are going to be like, oh, he's a Cincinnati fan. I do like this Cincinnati team.
Yeah.
I'm really not. It's just that they keep on showing examples of how they've taken a stride. And I think, I probably said this last week, I feel like the whole reason they've gone under the radar right now, to the extent that they have, is that everybody got to watch them week 1 in a loss to a Nebraska squad.
Just checking to see if that was a Cincinnati shirt.
Oh. To a Nebraska squad by 3 points right now that's hanging in the Big Ten, and Cincinnati had far from their best day.
Yeah.
And so since we had that as our first example, it's like people kind of wrote them off and like, oh, it's the same Cincinnati team that ended last year.
They didn't write back.
But it's not that they just beat Iowa State. In my mind, just flipped who's a favorite for my personal polls. Who's a favorite? It's how they beat them, because Iowa State down 2 starting defensive backs, especially John Tez Williams, who's one of the best defensive backs in the conference. Like that's hard to come back from. It's certainly going to make a dent on your defense. But Cincinnati ran all over Iowa State, up and down the field, physically dominated them. It was 38-30, felt like it was 60-20. I mean, Iowa State had to scratch and claw just to make that kind of interesting at the end. I didn't love, speaking of Satterfield, I didn't love his decision-making on when you needed like one more first down because they took a knee and then they ran a play. I thought that was odd, but that's besides the point. I just, the way that Cincinnati is winning games is really impressive. And then Brendan Sorsby's a top 3 Big 12 quarterback.
Brendan Sorsby is the highest graded quarterback in the FBS on PFF.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he went from a guy that was viewed as a game manager to suddenly a guy who can make all the throws. Oh, and by the way, use his legs. And it just feels like any time, at least this season, that they've needed a big first down, like especially if it's a third and manageable, like they're 100% going to get it. And I also like that they do a good job of not taking the ball out of his hands.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to run through these because a lot of this is relapped.
Okay.
My overreaction, Satterfield is getting out of his own way, and Cincinnati has replaced Iowa State in the contenders clubhouse with Texas Tech, Utah, and Arizona State.
Ding.
At worst, Cincinnati will go 9-3, 7-2 in Big 12 play.
Ding.
Next overreaction, Texas Tech is the best defense in the country.
Ding.
Third overreaction, BYU's offense is getting better every week and could be a 3-headed monster by the time they get to Lubbock if Bachmeier really locks in.
He somehow had his best and worst game as a collegiate quarterback against West Virginia, because he had a couple, what I would say, one, I would really say a silly turnover.
He looks like a freshman on about 5 or 6 plays.
And yet his deep ball seems to be getting every single week. I think Chase Roberts and him have a very good connection. And I walked away going like, there was a freshman quarterback, and also like, that's a freshman quarterback. Good grief. I'm so curious.
Old Gundy. What is he, a freshman? That's bad. Yeah.
I'm so curious about their quarterback situation moving forward, because like with Ryder Lyons coming in, it felt like, okay, can we just get through this year?
Yeah.
Can we just get through this year, and then it's going to be his team? And I mean, how do you not have it as a competition right now? And they seem to love him more and more every single week.
Well, if Bear Bachmeier is good this year, and you can redshirt Ryder Lyons next year, or have him go on a 2-year mission, and that's what they do.
It's just, I don't.
That's the thing.
But when you say, why don't you go on another mission? Why don't you stay another year?
And then have him redshirt. That's 3 years of Bear Bachmeier. So you can still get, I mean, at worst, 3 years out of Ryder Lyons. They're set up well.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of Bear Bachmeier, you want my Offensive Player of the Year?
I would love your of the week, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year of the week.
Bear Bachmeier. 351 yards passing, 43 yards rushing, 2 total touchdowns. And again, Chase Roberts looked great. L.J. Martin looked great. Those 3, I think Arizona State to Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson and Raleek Brown are a little bit similar. Like, can you take one of those guys out of the equation and that offense still run as well? Mm-hmm. Can you put all of your efforts into limiting Jordan Tyson and Arizona State still beat you? Can you put all your efforts into L.J. Martin or Chase Roberts, and can Bear Bachmeier find the other guys and still beat you? I don't know yet. Can Raleek Brown with Arizona State, can he beat you by himself? I don't know yet. He kind of did beat TCU, though Jordan Tyson did still have 2 touchdowns. Those 2 offenses are very similar to me. It's just that Sam Levitt's a little older, so I would give the edge to Arizona State. But I have Bear Bachmeier, and it's kind of turned into who's playing West Virginia or Oklahoma State every week is getting the offensive player of the week.
I was trying really hard to stay away from Fafita because he had 5 touchdowns, and I was like looking for a reason. I was like, oh yeah, but he had the interception. So.
Yeah. So that's my offensive player of the year of the week.
He got sacked 6 times.
Yeah, they did sack him a bunch.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna do the Big 12 route for the first time this year. I'm very excited to have co-offensive players of the year.
Of the week.
Evan Pryor, Cincinnati running back, about 10 carries, 111 yards. If you're doing math, that average is real good. 2 touchdowns and leader for a 260-yard day against the Cyclones on the ground.
And who's the other?
Tawee Walker, Cincinnati running back, 14 carries, 89 yards, second highest rusher for a 260-yard day against the Cyclones. It felt a little cheating here,
yeah.
But they one has 4 more carries, and then the other guy gets the touchdowns. But they were so effective. I don't want to just keep hammering this or anything, but I walked away really, really impressed, and I think they were both equally good. I was just going to have Evan Pryor on here because he had the 2 touchdowns, but they both dominated in that game. And really, you could just say Cincinnati's offensive line, but I mean the running backs they had a couple. I'm forgetting his name. 14 for Iowa State, got ran over twice in that game. He's got to have nightmares about the Bearcats. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Who is your defensive player of the year?
Of the week, Jalen Hunt. 6 tackles, 2 sacks, Cincinnati defensive line. He's an edge, but in that 3-man front, he's also a tackle. It's just how it is there. I didn't think they had the dudes defensively last year really run that defense correctly. I think they have him this year, and he's a big part of that. I thought he had a really good game setting the edge and controlling the Iowa State offense.
I like that. I'm always interested, how do we line up with the actual Big 12 awards? And neither of us took either of their defensive guys, and I don't disagree. I was shocked that a Red Raider did not end up on Defensive Player of the Week.
It was one of those, they gave it to the whole defensive line, but the one you picked is the guy, and would have been my guy.
Jake Golday got, and Nnamdi Obiazor, sorry, I just Gronkowski'd there for a second. Did you see him try to say the Tampa Bay receiver's name? He's like, Agabupu.
Yeah.
Not even
That's
close.
almost worse than Moses Moody.
Anyways,
who am I, though, to say anything about a guy who can't pronounce a name?
I know. And they both had really good days.
Yeah.
But David Bailey, and you could give this to Jacob Rodriguez too.
Yes.
Because he was all over the field. But David Bailey, the PFF, here you go, Defensive Player of the Week, also Pass Rusher of the Week. You had on 29 dropbacks between 2 quarterbacks because I have a thought on another side thought in a second.
Lung disease.
But you just hammered their quarterbacks. We talked about that it was going to be a bad matchup. I think everybody that did any homework knew that was going to be a bad matchup. I wonder if the Houston fans that really did believe they were about to get their first win, if in the first play, and not just because it was a turnover, but how quickly that pocket collapsed around Connor Wigman, if they went, oh no.
I think he did.
And David Bailey, of 19 pressures of 29 dropbacks, David Bailey had 11 of them, a couple of sacks, another tackle for loss that he might as well not have even been blocked. But that's the one I would have been the most angry about as a Houston fan, is that running back got hammered.
And that was Dalton Merritt.
Yes.
Look, their left tackle, speaking of PFF grades,
Yeah.
and David Bailey had a really good one. Their left tackle had a 0 pass blocking grade. 0. He came with a 44, he had a 0 this weekend. I mean, you victimized Ebo Sele, and that's who we talked about last week. That I did not think either offensive tackle for Arizona could keep up with the pass rush. They really couldn't even keep up with the rush blocking either.
I thought that was, he's been great all year. I thought that was a Bailey breakout game, though.
Yeah. I mean, he leads the country in pressures. They affect the quarterback, and they haven't had the sack numbers maybe that you want. They have a lot of sacks, but they the outrageous sack numbers. But everyone is so focused on just getting rid of the ball, and it's obviously affecting the offenses.
And then on top of it, I mean, the pass rush was great, but then you're like, oh, what did you do with the running game? Like Dean Connors had nothing.
39?
Yeah. And then Zion Chris scrambling towards the end of the game, like makes it respectable, where I think they just clipped 100. But you choked the life out of them, and it all started up front, and David Bailey was your standout guy. I have a thought, and I thought about this with Houston. I kind of thought about this with Utah too, and it made more sense afterwards. Are you familiar with the film Lawless?
Sure.
Yeah, tremendous film for those that don't know.
Shia LaBeouf.
2012.
Tom Hardy.
Featuring bootleggers.
Guy Pearce.
Dirty U.S. Marshal. Backwoods of Franklin County, Virginia. The Bondurant brothers. Yeah, Forrest, Howard, and Jack. As you said, Tom Hardy, Jason Clarke, Shia LaBeouf. My favorite scene. What?
Great reference.
My favorite scene is when the now dirty local law enforcement, who have already roughed up younger brother Jack, as an intimidation factor, try to serve a summons in as being the face of Special Agent Charlie Ricks. Again, for those that haven't seen this, it's a great movie. Do you remember this scene? They meet him at their restaurant / gas station.
Yeah.
And Howard is in the back hearing all of this.
The middle brother.
Technically, he's actually the
older brother.
The older brother. I always got that wrong too.
Yeah.
And Forrest up on the porch, right as they're doing that, says this: "Have you met Howard?" And then he crashes through the door, beats the crap out of those two guys, and starts pumping oil down their mouth. That's what your defensive line is doing week in and week out. So, and if you have any sort of confidence against them, just like, have you met David?
Yeah.
Have you met Romello?
No.
Have you met Skyler? Have you met Lee? Lee Hunter will have his helmet ripped off and still hammer a quarterback. It's incredible.
Beautiful.
All I can think about is that scene every single time.
That's a great pull. Is it Jessica Chastain? Mm-hmm. It's a great movie. Yeah. It's a great movie.
Moonshine Break. Them out. Yeah.
Are you worried about the penalties and red zone struggles?
I'm not worried about the red zone. And they kind of go hand in hand, so I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. Like I said earlier, at first when you were struggling in the red zone, I thought part of it was your run game was just not clean. It was obvious that it wasn't clean. It wasn't that you were a worse offensive line than the defensive lines you were playing at home. It just the running game was not meshing well together. This time, when you were bad in the red zone, it's for a whole other reason. Like you kept dropping passes. Easy one, gimmies, and that just hasn't been an issue for the receivers all year. So from that aspect, no. From the penalty side, yeah, I am concerned because now it's back-to-back weeks. The good news is you've been so good and so talented, it hasn't remotely bit you. It just held you back from points that you thought you should be scoring more. Although Utah, if you go back to some of those before you had blown that game open, it made it a little riskier. But if you do that in Tempe, who's to say it doesn't bite you then? Yeah. So I would say, I'm concerned, Slightly concerned. Slightly concerned, very much aware of penalties. I'm not worried about the red zone because if you had just, and something Coach McGuire had talked about in his media availability, like sometimes we're so focused on the, which is funny because we're going to get into this with Kansas, some of the pre-snap motion and things like that and trying to adjust what the defense is looking at. Sometimes we overthink it and we're not just lining up and taking out some of the unneeded parts. And I'm not saying to never run motion or anything. This is just what, something he'd mentioned.
Right.
When you're on the 1 yard line, just snap the ball and punch it in. Because you've been good enough to do that. Now, you've gotten to that point, you're good enough to do that.
I would like to get a little more creative in the red zone. But again, I'm not worried about the red zone offense. I am concerned with the penalties. Not so much in Big 12 play. Maybe in Tempe. Mm-hmm. Maybe against BYU, because I think those defenses can force your hand a little bit. But all those games we talked about earlier, that if you are playing in Alabama or a Miami or an Ohio State or an Oregon, you have to play clean football. Mm-hmm. So
there's a reason that I only pulled Arizona State.
You have 7 games, right? You have 7 games to start correcting those. 8 if you play in a Big 12 championship, which I hope we do. But there's some opportunities here to get right and correct all that. And this week is the first time you can do that.
And let me ask you another question. Statistically, Behren Morton has been really good. Is there anything in his play that is missing?
I think Mac Leftwich, at times, has really leaned into the Behren Morton offense. And when you do see Behren Morton struggle a little bit, I think Mac's calling his Mac Leftwich offense. Mm-hmm. I think we need to get back to just calling the game for Behren Morton, not worrying about running the ball or having these specific run plays in for the quarterback. If you want to run the ball, run it with the running back and focus on what Behren does best. And I think that's working the ball to the outside, working the ball down the field, and getting it to his running backs in space. Whether that's the rail, the wheel, or kind of the Texas route that Cam Dickey scored on. Giving him hot routes, letting him find the tight ends, letting the guy find a space in his zone. He's really good at all that. Just rip it with Behren. And maybe not worry about all the other stuff that Behren doesn't excel at and try to work that in the game plan just because you feel like you need to.
So the answer is no. This is like an early fan question because I pulled that word for word using the word missing. And I don't think that there's something missing from his game because, well, one, at this point, I mean, in his stage, we know who Behren is, right? He's a really good pure passer. Sometimes he'll keep a play alive and he'll try to find something downfield when things break down, but I don't think that's what you're needing him to do.
I think he's been really good this year at extending the pocket.
Yeah. I mean, he had a couple of plays early on, especially his drive extenders against Houston, that he did exactly that.
Was it when he found Reggie Virgil on the sideline?
Yes.
That was an awesome play.
Yes.
Extending the pocket.
So, he can do that, but I don't think that they're necessarily especially time and a place, right? I don't know when that happened, that was early, and you were still trying to find points on the board, but he's being asked to be efficient, find the open guy, make the right decision, lead the offense on and off the field, and he's done that. But people's biggest knock on him is that he isn't a dynamic playmaker. And it's like, okay, well, every other quarterback has a quote-unquote deficiency somewhere in their game. Newsflash, there isn't a perfect quarterback in college football, especially this year's college football. Are there things he can improve upon and things he does well? Yeah, but you're always trying to take care of those little things, right? But if you're just saying well, there's something missing from his game. No, there's some things that a certain quarterback does well that another doesn't, and then you just flip it.
If you're going into the biggest game of the year so far, and it's a blackout, when you have an opportunity to be 6-0, and hypothetical, you're wearing a throwback uniform, it's a blackout.
Could be 100 years since you played the first game.
Yeah. Let's just say all that hypothetically is happening at the same time. Would you rather have a guy who has 20 career wins under his belt or a guy who's 0-1 in his only start?
Yeah, I would like the 20-win guy. Yeah.
There's nothing against Will Hammond. I'm very excited for him to start 30 games in the next 2 years and win 2 national championships and be hailed as the greatest quarterback of all time. But this team is Behren Morton's team, and I have no issue with that.
What I hate with that conversation is like when you push back to a Hammonder, they feel like you're slandering Hammond. You're not.
He's great. I expect him to be really good next year. And it's also like, did you see him come in and how excited the team was? They love Hammond. It's like, yeah, have you seen how excited they've started every other game? They love Behren Morton too. Like, I don't know. It just, I would be confident in both quarterbacks playing. Mm-hmm. But I'm not any less confident in Behren Morton than I have been at any point in his career. In fact, I'm probably the highest on Behren I've ever been right now.
Yeah. Somebody on our chat line had said that they thought Behren Morton played a very mature game despite not having the red zone success as a team.
Yeah.
Now, that's a good way to put it, because one of the times was whenever in the second half, when you don't really need it, it's 3rd and 5 within the 20. I'm forgetting specifically where it's at. And it's one where there's nobody open, and he just throws it out of the back of the end zone. Yeah. That's what you're supposed to do as an older quarterback.
Live to play another day.
We can't be like, oh, you got to take all these shots. You got to survive the play. But then when he does do that, you're like, why are you taking unneeded shots and stuff? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Let's want to get into some Kansas?
Yes. I've got a question for you.
Let's do it.
If Kansas's best offense is Jalon Daniels scrambling for 6 yards a carry, do you think Kansas had a successful day?
Best offense, scrambling for 6 yards, yes. 100%. Yes.
You think Texas Tech had a successful day?
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%.
And that seems to be what everyone's worried about, because what did he add to his name?
Gillionaire?
Gillionaire? I don't think it's Gillionaire.
Are you sure? I thought it was...
When did he add that? That's like
I don't know.
Josh Hines Allen. What is that?
They didn't put it. They
Hines?
They didn't put that on Houston's website. Houston's own website didn't have it on there.
It's nowhere. I guess he came into the game and they were like, "Oh, we've changed his name. All right, take it out there." Yeah, if you collapsing the line so fast that there's space for Jalon Daniels to run for 5 yards of play, and if that's their best offense, give it to him. Even if he pops a couple for 10 or 15, you're going to get some sacks. It's all going to even out. I hope Jalon Daniels has to run the ball 20 times.
And they don't want that.
And that's the only offense that's working. That is a dream to me. I want Jalon Daniels beat us. I dare you.
And that's what he's going to. If Kansas is going to have offensive success, you can always say, well, yeah, circle the quarterback, sure, but this is really going to rest on the shoulders of Jalon Daniels. This has been full control, and they're not really even built right now to have a consistent running game, and part of that is like Daniel Highshaw, undisclosed injury. I don't even know if he's going to be in this game. I wouldn't expect it because it's so weird. Yeah. So it really is running game all on LaShawn Williams. And so if they're having a good day running the ball just from, even with the creativity that they have of just handing it off, that's a bad sign. I don't expect that. If their best offense is off of play action and hitting the tight ends, which they have a couple of good ones, that's not good. That means they've been setting that up effectively. If it's him consistently hitting their best target, Emmanuel Henderson, that's bad because it means they took the top off the defense a bunch. And so I think, yeah, if it's just Daniel scrambling was their best offense, I think you had a really dominant day, and I think the Kansas offense struggled. And if I'm being honest, even though Jalon Daniels specifically has played much cleaner football, I think there is a couple turnovers mixed in there as well.
Yes. He will throw it to the other team if pressured.
The most pressure he's...
Or fumble.
Right, and no, that's what I'm saying. The most pressure he's been under all year was Missouri's defense, and by the way, they still put up a pretty good amount of points against them. Yeah. And that was... I know this will be a hostile environment, but when you add that rivalry and that it just built right back up immediately, I think your environment could be awesome and affect them a little bit, but I don't think that it's not like the first crazy environment that they'll have walked into. If they make mistakes, I think it'll be more of you force them into mistakes and you have that ability, just like they have in that game against Missouri, made a couple. In the game against Cincinnati, which was obviously a home game for them, made a crucial one. But for Daniels, I mean, he's been a stud this year. He's been exactly what that fan base has been dreaming of, especially when you add in the word durable to it. You know, electric, durable, big play guy leading a big play offense. He's been really good. And I think healthy has been the biggest thing, because even last year when he was healthy, he was still like just trying to find his momentum again as a player because he missed so much time. And this year, I think he's done that. He hasn't really gotten flustered. He's taking care of the ball. But if you can fluster him a little bit more, especially if I say more than anybody else, it's kind of the same thing with Dampier and Wegman. It's like, okay, well, is that guy from last year, is he still in there because he hasn't been forced into it? That's the goal, right, this week. And then, speaking of the running game, if you take out LaShawn Williams like you have all the other running backs that you faced so far, it's going to be even more on Daniel's shoulders. Like, all right, we can't do anything in the running game. If we're going to get anything on the ground, it's going to be you scrambling, or we're going to... You know what I'm interested in this week is they've done a good job of setting up big plays, and obviously their offense is so good at, hey, look what we're doing over here. Oh, we're going this way. Misdirection, pre-snap motion, window dressing, all of that stuff, however you want to say it. It's been back to what it was a couple of years ago, because now they have more of the Leipold and what Kudelnicki had there with Zabrowski as the offensive coordinator, and they've gotten back to what made them so effective. And also, I think something else for Daniels, an offense that fits what he does a lot better. And so if you find a way to cut through some of like the cute stuff, then you could still physically dominate this Kansas team. That's the underlying thing. Like if you're biting on a bunch of stuff, that's where it's the least straightforward offense that you've seen this year, and probably going to all year. That's what kind of makes it hard to defend. And if you can just stay with your responsibilities and take care of the things you're supposed to for each individual player like you have all year, I don't see a reason why you can't have another dominant defensive day.
I think this is the best passing game you've played. And I think that Jalon Daniels is the most dynamic, almost said running back, quarterback you've played. Mm-hmm. Though I don't know that he's infinitely better than either Dampier or Wegman or Zion Chris, just as far as a running back. Now, he has more accolades in the Big 12. He certainly has more starts in the Big 12. He has done more in the Big 12. But just based on the type of quarterback, you handled Devin Dampier. Mm-hmm. You handled Wegman and Zion Chris. So can Jalon Daniels extend plays in the pocket or just behind the line of scrimmage, because there's not going to be a pocket probably? And can they do what you're saying? Can they set up the play action that they're so good at? Can they create that motion and counter movement that they're so good at and have been good at, around Grimes. Mm-hmm. Not with Grimes, but around Grimes. With the Kudelnicki...
It's a donut with him in the middle. He's
circle,
that hole right there.
With the offense that they're trying to do. I'm going to give my prediction. Can we do that now, since we're there?
Sure.
Okay. I think Kansas will score the most so far against this defense. But what does the most look like? Is it? I kind of been waffling between two numbers. I think Texas Tech can score 42. Is it going to be 42-17 as the most? Are they going to get a touchdown more than everyone else, or 2 touchdowns more? Just because of the big playability of Kansas, I do think they hit some and at least get into the red zone some. So I'm going to say 42-24, and that you win, you cover, all that, but Kansas does find some success because of their big play ability to get it down the field. And then I think they cash in once they get there once or twice.
I'm with you. I think Kansas is going to find a way in the end zone a couple of times, and then they're going to settle for a couple of field goals. And so I've got it at 20 points for them. I have been going back and forth for you offensively.
Yeah.
I've been going, and I feel like because I've overshot it just about every single week. And so in my mind, I think they're going to score 42 or 45 points. But I'm almost going to just play myself safe and make it a 38.
Do you know what?
I'm actually just giving the score for the first time because I haven't responded to Jamie's email.
Do you know what I think this game...
38-20 feels about right.
I think this game could be. And maybe spread it out a little further. This could be a North Texas type score from last year. And that ended 66-21.
Yeah. Here's the thing, because I wanted to talk about Kansas's defense. Because you might go, well, the two best teams that they've played, they've lost, but they've been in those games, right? Cincinnati and Missouri, and I think Cincinnati was the more frustrating one for them. And so if Jalon Daniels has been, and he's been really good at extending the pocket, he's been really good about keeping his head and running when he has to, but he's staying alive to throw the ball downfield, and he's been so accurate. And Henderson, Cam Pickett, a couple of tight ends now without Hanukkah, Bowden Grown and Carson Brune, a couple of names just to keep an eye on. They've used them really well. Shocker, this offense uses tight ends well.
Yeah. Maybe that's the matchup.
Maybe,
Yeah.
and I think he's going to try to find them. But
Thought it was going to be last week.
And that's why I bring it up. It was just Koziel. So does a couple change anything instead of just one?
Sure.
I wouldn't put too much money on that. But the reason that they have lost games has been the defense. And to start, before I get into this, because people are going to think like, oh, this is 2010's Kansas defense. And it's not that. It's almost, if you're a Kansas fan, it's probably more frustrating.
Yeah.
And this is why. Because you know how good the offense is, one. And if you've watched this defense, they've got some really athletic pieces. They do play fast. They surge in the backfield really well. They hit the quarterback a lot, which is something that obviously is going to be on the big board there. I think that's a big thing for Morton in the offensive line. But they're second in the league with sacks. And you go, okay, well, they've played 6 games, not everybody has. Okay, but they're still third if you go sacks per game. They've also had 44 tackles for loss. Trey Latham has been their best. With 6, they can absolutely go, and they will fly. They will play, all the usual sayings. They play with their hair on fire, and they will certainly deliver some shots.
They're almost too athletic. They're overrunning a lot.
And this is a problem. They don't set. So, why has it been so bad in the running game? Why has it been so bad on 3rd and 4th down? And why have offenses gotten into the red zone so much? Well, it's like they over-pursue, and then on top of that, sometimes when they do have these defensive surges, the first guy gets there, and then broken tackle. Okay, but he had such a good play. Surely the second guy is going to clean it up. Oh, nope, there's an arm tackle. That was just like he might as well not have been there. All right, well, the third guy surely is going to bring this guy down. No. And it's been, we talked about it last week when we just kind of mentioned them. I think this is the worst tackling team in the conference. And it bit them in big moments against Cincinnati, bit them in a couple big moments against Missouri. It bit them in the first half against UCF, and almost in the end, I was just shocked that they had the goal line stand that they did to keep. Ended up being a game-winning goal line stand, but there was a 3rd and 18 that big pass play converted. Like all of that stuff, the situational defense for them is really, really bad.
Yeah.
And then you add poor tackling. And that's, if I'm the running backs, and honestly maybe even like the receivers or Terrence Carter, pretty excited about this matchup. You know what's something, this is just one last random thought before we whip around the Big 12. Lance Leipold has obviously done a really good job there with Kansas. I think there's only a handful of guys that you could have gotten to go there, convinced to go there, that could have turned them around in the way that he's done it. But I think he and Joey McGuire actually have a lot in common. Like how they approach being a head coach. They're both big culture guys. Obviously, McGuire's in his first collegiate head coaching role, but I think they're both program builders. And I think for both, there's maybe like a CEO kind of feel with how they let coordinators coordinate, how they let the recruiting guys recruit, whatever role they're in. Yes, they're the final decision guys, but they let their coaches coach. And, you know, their turnaround couldn't have been with just anybody. Just like I don't think what you've done this year could have been with just anybody. And also, for what it's worth, they both have done a really good job of their fan base's buy-in, their donors' buy-in, clearly, you know, and then just putting life into programs. I think it's really interesting how you have two coaches like that maybe when you're just looking at them go, they couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
And then you start looking at what they've done and how they do it. Like, to me, they're two of the more similar coaches in the conference.
That's very astute. It's a very astute observation.
Thank you. Just observing things. All right, I'm ready to whip around. Whip around. Whoosh. Sorry, I shouldn't have.
I've got 3 games I'm looking at.
I didn't do the noise. Will you set it up again? I'm sorry.
Well, I think we did it right.
I want to make the noise with you.
You did?
I just said whip around again.
Oh, but you did the...
I did the second time.
Wait, you're talking with your hands today and charading everything? Is that true?
All right,
It's time for the Big 12 whip around.
Let's just get into it. You talk with your hands too.
I never said I didn't.
Yeah, but you said I do more than you. Comment below on the YouTube stream who talks with their hands more.
All right, charade
Rob
boy.
Brewer.
I've got 3 games.
Worst superhero ever. What's wrong, charade boy?
Yeah. All right.
And then there's just an explosion in the background.
Obviously, Texas State, Kansas. That's one of the games. But I think there's 3 others that I'm just paying attention to. First off, Cincinnati, UCF. Can you host that 11 a.m. game as Cincinnati and not stumble? I think it's important that Cincinnati keeps winning, not only for you and I to be right, but for the Big 12 to... I think you need to continue to have one-loss and undefeated teams in the Big 12 kind of beat up on the lower half. That's why the SEC always looks good, is because their top half dominates their bottom half, and they move forward like that. The other games I'm looking at, the 2 night games, I think BYU Arizona is really intriguing. I don't trust Arizona yet, and a lot of people do. And obviously Vegas does, because this is just a 1.5 point line, and I would have that much larger. I mean, at least 5.5, I think, for BYU. I think they should be a touchdown favorite potentially. And then the game of the week, obviously to me, which is a touchdown line at home for Utah, 6.5 points. That's Arizona State and Utah. Can Arizona State go on the road? Now, you got them at 10 a.m. Can they go in there at 7:15 p.m. and in the fourth quarter at 10 p.m. handle Rice Eccles? Because it was crazy at 10 a.m. I can only imagine what it's like at night. That could be a bad draw for Arizona State. But whoever wins that game, I think, will be number 2 in the conference. And if it's a close game, I think the team that loses is still number 4 in the conference, with BYU staying at 3.
See, this is where we have different personal Big 12 standings. Because, not to go back to Cincinnati, I think they worked their way right into that top 3 category for me.
They're 5 on mine.
I would put, maybe 2A, 2B between them and Arizona State. And so this is where I would, again, with you, obviously Tech and Kansas, I think I would flip the games that I'm really zeroed in on, because I'm expecting Cincinnati to have a good performance again. And if they don't, well, then that's just going to prove that they couldn't handle it, right?
Yeah.
Too inconsistent. And I wouldn't trust them consistently moving forward. agree with BYU at Arizona. I know we talked a lot about Bear Bachmeier towards the start of the episode. I'm not all the way sold on the offense yet. Like, it looks better, but it's also been ugly. Like, it has not flowed well.
It's an ugly offense, but they're 5-0 somehow.
And so since this one's on the road, clear that should be in the discussion. And then Arizona could clearly make a statement too. And now they had the chance against Iowa State. That was on the road, different scenario. Is it different at home? Obviously, we'll find out on Saturday night. Everything that you said about Arizona State and Utah, I'm a little surprised on the line that it is that big. Not that Utah is a favorite, but I would have thought that this is more in the 2.5 to 3.5 range. I don't think that was enough respect given to Arizona State, especially with what they've done the past few weeks of beating other contenders, including one on the road. But, Utah, who knows? At the same time, I don't think it's crazy to think Utah wins that by a couple of scores. I honestly think that game is going to look a lot like your game in Rice-Eccles with a little bit more points from both sides.
Yep.
And then the one that I've switched for you, I'm looking at Iowa State. At Colorado, Colorado has made these games interesting even though they're 2-4. How do you respond if you're the Cyclones? Because you're still in the top 25 for what that's worth to you. You're still 2-1 in the Big 12 standings. Right now, you're still right in the thick of it, but if you don't beat Colorado, well, one, it's pretty much going to eliminate you. But then on the other side, you have BYU, you have Arizona State, you're at TCU, you have Kansas, and Matt Campbell, for what it's worth, has struggled a little bit against the Kansas Jayhawks, specifically Lance Leipold. So if you drop this game in Boulder, which they are not a heavy favorite, 2.5 for the Cyclones there.
Kind of a bad matchup for Iowa State.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that game.
Since we're whipping around, we might as well go to all of them. TCU, Kansas State, another game.
It's all about TCU.
Really important for TCU. If TCU loses, they're both out of the title picture, in my opinion.
Yeah, Kansas State's already out.
Already with 2 losses. I think 2 teams can finish this conference race with only 1 loss in conference play. And then Houston, Oklahoma State also playing. You want to move on?
Just one thought. One thought on Kansas State.
Yeah.
They're eliminated. But I think that they're good enough if they can have it not fall apart. And maybe it's TCU. They're good enough to be a spoiler.
They're spoilers. Kansas State could absolutely go on a run and be in the Texas Bowl at 7-5.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think that's their ceiling right now because I still think they'll lose a couple. Certainly could lose this weekend. If they lose this weekend and TCU wins, TCU's probably still in the title picture for now. I don't think they can run the ball well enough to really be in it long term. But Kansas State's like on climate watch, on Matt Wells losing play calling duties watch, on like bowl contention watch. Like they are in the danger zone if they lose at home to TCU this week.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get to the fan question of the week. You can give us yours if you want to on the YouTube comment. We can take it there. We'll take it on my Twitter, on Rob's Twitter, on the T97.3 Twitter. Just make sure to mention Red Raider Recon. Out every single Wednesday. Appreciate everyone's response to the podcast.
Y'all were awesome last week, by the way.
Yeah, for real. This week's question. It's an interesting one. I've really had to think about this. What position group has been your best offensively?
I think your receivers haven't been as good as I thought they could be. Still been good.
Yeah.
I think your tight ends...
They have room to grow.
Yeah. I think your tight ends are what I thought they would be, really good. Especially Terrence Carter. I'm intrigued, Clint, to hear your response because it's got to be one of the 3 I haven't mentioned, right? It's running backs, offensive line, or quarterback.
You'd be correct.
It's quarterback, right? Running back?
It's running backs.
Yeah.
I again
just based on what you thought they would be and how
Yes.
they overperformed. Yeah, that makes sense.
And here's your full circle moment in high def for the podcast here in its entirety. It's going back to, one of my 3 thoughts. And your running backs, I really think that you have the best duo in the league right now. And without them, at least early on, I mean, think of who your go-to touchdowns have been, who your explosive touchdowns in Big 12 play has been. Granted, Jacoby Williams, that was not an explosive touchdown, but an explosive play that sets you up for a touchdown punched in by Cam Dickey.
And really the only offense in the first 3 quarters
Yes.
of that game.
And then Cam Dickey really, I think he provided a sigh of relief with that 69-yard touchdown reception against Houston. And as they get better and better, we've seen them be good all year, but then on top of it, it's like they're progressing.
Yeah.
And I think for your offense, one, that's great. For opposing defenses, with the ability of how you can throw the ball, that should be terrifying. And so I'm very high on your duo of running backs right now.
Yeah, if your running backs can have 75 yards of receiving and 150 yards of rushing every game, if they can produce 200 yards of offense, I mean that's quality.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not as good as Taj Brooks at running the ball.
Sure.
But this offense, they're both more dynamic than he was allowed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the reasons why your offense has been more consistent this year.
So what's your answer?
I could say that too. I think the offensive line in 3 weeks, hopefully, is the answer, that they keep improving, because I think they have improved game by game. And they're going to have some opportunities to really prove it, especially against Kansas this week. As you said, their front 7 is aggressive, and they've been a good sack team the last couple of years. Bang Alley is a great player when he's been on the field.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that the offensive line could be that for me because, again, expectations versus production, what they're able to do. But both your quarterbacks have also been really good. So I think you could answer tight end, offensive line, running back, or quarterback, and I wouldn't push back much.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have pushed back much before this week on receivers. But it's like, what could you have been if you had caught all the balls?
Isn't that interesting that you have Caleb Douglas have a 100-yard day?
Yeah.
And in the end, Aiken have a good day.
Yeah.
And
they've been good.
And then you walk away from it going like, that's why, like, that's when you say you're leaving meat on the bone.
Yeah.
It does feel like maybe it cycles through from unit to unit offensively early.
Yeah.
But certainly the receivers were kind of the Razzie Award, if you will, this week.
And to me, it's more of my expectation of them is to be perfect.
Yeah.
Which may be unfair. I think a lot of people's expectation is Behren Morton to be perfect, and I do think that's unfair. But if we're just, like, ranking them, I think the wide receivers were probably the worst unit against Houston. Prisoner of the moment. And I think the running backs have provided so much juice and so many tough yards, even with the fumble from Cam Dickey. I would give the edge right now to the running backs, if not the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I like the way that I'm viewing the receivers. It's kind of like that your straight A student that struggles on a test for the first time and gets a C, and maybe they didn't study as hard as they should have or whatever, and you're the parent, and you're not like, how could you get a C on this? Go to your room.
Yeah.
We're throwing it in the trash or whatever. You're like, you'll do better next time.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how I'm looking
and
at it.
The running backs have been getting C's, right? Or you expected them to, hey, let's just be average.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pass. and they're getting B pluses, and you're like, oh yeah. If the other unit got B pluses, you'd be like, hey man, let's step it up a little more. But
Plus, they're doing extra credit, and you're like,
Yeah.
are you going to be an honors student?
and they're both young, full-time starters for the first time. I've been really impressed with them.
Yeah. This was another fun episode. We're enjoying the ride of Red Raider Recon. Hopefully you are as well. Make sure to tell all your friends to come check us out. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Smash that like button. Hey, we'll see you next week. Charade boy!